Okay, hi everyone. Today, this video, I wanted to do a kind of discussion of Ottoman origins, but not to get into the uh, early Ottoman history, like the historical events necessarily, but to discuss how do we know what we know, what are some of the problems of the sources, and to kind of show people, this is what you do as a scholar when you're trying to work with this sort of chronicles. But just to give a little bit of background, so when we talk about the early Ottoman Emirate or Sultanate, we're talking about this kind of small territory, initially small, here in northwest Anatolia. And as you can see from this map, you probably don't want to take the boundaries too seriously, but on this map, but gives you a good idea of the area. You have Byzantine Constantinople, Nicomedia, Nicaea, Bursa, and then you have these territories in here that eventually become incorporated into the early Ottoman Emirate, especially Soğut, İnegöl, Bilecik, and the others you see pictured there on the map. And the chronicles, what do I mean by chronicle? These are narrative histories written in prose or verse or a combination of the two, and they pretty much narrate Osman and his earliest successors. So what I have on the video here, Osman and then Orhan and then Murad from the 14th century. And their kind of growth as they move out of this sort of area of Bithynia and gradually they move into the Byzantine Empire. And just another map. The Ottomans are a small emirate at first in this area, but they're pretty well situated. But there are others as well. You have Aydin, Karaman, Germian, and these other Anatolian beyliks. The Ottomans are not the only ones in the Anatolia at this time that are Turkish beyliks. And you also have the Trabzon in on the Black Sea. That's a sort of Byzantine kind of successor state, and then the main Byzantine Empire there in the kind of Balkans. Now, to understand this history, if you look at the list of sources I have, maybe you will see kind of a problem. They're all late. We're talking about events that happened at the beginning of the 14th century, right? So the earliest source is Aḥmedī's Tavari Muluki Ali Osman. This is dated 1416 to 17. That's the earliest dated copy. Obviously, there must have been an older one if Aḥmedī dies in 1412, or we think that's when he died. And this is a verse chronicle, so it's sort of not really the most user-friendly if you want to study factual kind of content, right? We can get into what we want about that. And the translation into English, to give you an idea of what it sounds like. So it begins, when an inspiration suddenly appeared in my heart, I wrote this history. All those remarks were just a preoccupation. They were an inspiration. The only solution for this story is that it be finished. I mentioned the situations and characters of the ruler. Some of them were infidels, and some were cruel. They had more tyranny than kindness. Now listen to the interpretation of how the justice of the Mongol rulers was. They did not mention the fact that Genghis Khan openly oppressed the people. Without making their hands bloody, they oppressed the people by means of law. If oppression takes place by law and seizure, it seems facile like justice to the people. Those remarks sound full of so many deficiencies to us. Now let us tell the story which has no defects, because all of the cruel people have been mentioned. Now let us come to those who are just. Let us tell of those begs who from first to last were not only Muslim but just. The duty of all of them is to fight against the infidels. Whatever they wear and eat is lawful. We will make it the conclusion to this book so that you will finish the story. The story will finish there. I will write the Gazavat Name for you. Listen, but don't interrupt me. Do not say, why have the Ghazis been mentioned late, and why have they appeared at the end? And then it begins another section, apology for the delay in Ghazi affairs. Now, when this is in the original Ottoman Turkish, it's rhyming verse, but obviously you sort of lose that in English. But to continue with Aḥmedī, what comes at the end is better than what comes at the beginning. Those who have intelligence understand what I say. God, through his generosity, has bestowed power, intelligence, life, and existence upon the human being. Intelligence undoubtedly was more important than the other three. That is why it appeared after the others. And then now I'll skip ahead in Aḥmedī to the sort of the beginning of the story and give you an idea of why this is sort of difficult to use as a historical source. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's sort of can be frustrating. So this section begins, one day the auspicious Sultan Alauddin asked, what is the situation of the Ghazis and the martyrs? He knew that campaign was the best way. For a Ghazi, it was easy to rally people around him. The Ghazi is the instrument of the true religion. Doubtlessly his position will be pleasant. The Ghazi is the servant of God who purifies this world from the filth of polytheism. The Ghazi is surely the sword of God. He is the protector and the refuge of the true believers. If he becomes a martyr on behalf of God, do not think that he has died. The suspicious one is still alive. It goes on like this, a few more verses, and then, well, really just one more verse, but then we get into kind of the kind of meat of this section. For this reason, he had a desire to go on a campaign so that they would bestow the name Ghazi upon him. And this is Sultan Alauddin, of course. And continuing, levying his troops, he set out together with Gündüz Alp and Ertugrul. In addition, Gök Alp and several people from the Oghuz tribe had become his comrades in that campaign. He came to Sultan Yugi from Konya. There the people came into his presence, kneeling down before him. He honored and entertained the rich. He granted presents and bestowed gifts upon the poor. He sent an army from there to the infidel regions, so that they would attack the cities and kill the unbelievers. There, Ertugrul battled for a long time. Finally, he became world famous. He attacked cities endlessly, took booty and captives. The army destroyed the land of the infidels. The Sultan stayed in that region for a period of time until the infidels were defeated. The Tatars were at peace with him when they heard that he was going against the infidels. Having gotten an opportunity, the Tatars again pillaged cities. Breaking the oath, they again became hostile to Sultan Alauddin. because of this news, he had so many difficulties. He had to return. The Sultan gave those regions to Ertugrul so that he would expel the infidel year after year. He went back to Konya, and several conquests were bestowed upon him. There, numerous people joined Ertugrul. Their affairs could only be improved through intelligence. Opening his heart, he became one with those who joined him. He devoted his life to the way of God. He marched and arrived in the region of Sout. He conquered that land by the sword. Shortly after that event, this world turned its face from him. Ertugrul left this world for his proper place. His son Osman took his position. So this is the beginning. And that was a long section to read, but what are what do we do with this as a scholar, or is it trying to get history out of this? Well, okay, so we have Sultan Alauddin. This would be the Sultan of Rum, one of the Seljuk successor states, ostensibly. But a lot of this, I don't want to make hasty conclusions, but a lot of this is factual, or using the facts to present, how do they want the society to be organized? What is the right way to do that? So, you want a Ghazi, right? You want a holy warrior who will fight the infidel, but also, you want someone who is just, who is going to, be a fair ruler. That's why, you have this line of, he's honoring and entertaining the rich, and he's also giving to the poor. This is the way a just ruler should behave, according to Aḥmedī, but, not just him. This is pretty common in Islamic thought. And then, we have some mentions. Ertugrul battled, attacks cities, and, he gets a lot of loot and captives, and he destroyed the land. But what does that mean, right? We're not really sure. So he attacked some cities. That could mean that he destroyed them, but it could just mean he attacked them. What's the, we don't really have a good idea of the scale of sort of Ertugrul's operation here. It says they destroyed the land. Maybe they did. Certainly armies do that, right? And, then there's also this problem with the Tatars. This is a term they use for kind of Turkmen and sort of Mongol descended people. They use this also in some of the other chronicles as well. The Tatars are usually juxtaposed against the Ottomans, and in these early narratives, and not this doesn't really mean like the Crimean or Volga Tatars. This is kind of a general term for other kind of Turkmens that are not really part of the Ghazi operation, let's say. But not to belabor the point, but, you can see, well, how much of a narrative can we extract from this? We definitely have some things of the Sultan Alauddin doing things, and he goes to get Ertugrul, and he has to go back to Konya to kind of deal with the situation. And this is kind of information that Aḥmedī's Tabari Muluki Ali Osman gives us, and that's the earliest one. But as we move forward, this is where we enter into some of the other problems of, the sources are late. There's no getting around that. Neshri's Cihan Numa, he dies 1520. Then you have Ashik Pashazadeh, and then the Oxford Anonymous Chronicle, which, as its name implies, we don't know who wrote that. It's another one of these early sources, and these are all done during the reign of Bayezid II. So, why during his reign in particular? Why is there this big sort of gap? That's a good question, and I think well, I will give my perspective. There's a matter of debate on this, and I encourage you to read things for yourself. Probably the time was finally right for there to be a kind of concerted history writing effort. Although it's important to note that all of these chronicles written during Bayezid II were not like court histories. And by that I mean they were not directly commissioned by the Sultan to be the official history of the dynasty. You don't even really get that in the Ottoman Empire until much later, where you get Naima, and he's in the 17th century, late 17th, early 18th century. So these are all kind of, everyone who's writing this is affiliated with the court in some way, or the, kind of the military administrative class during Bayezid II's reign. But it's not a kind of state project in that, in the sense of Naima later on, or you can think of perhaps in the modern day we have governments, militaries will write like the official history of a conflict or a campaign, right? We don't have that here. And of the Bayezid II chronicles, Ashikpashazadeh is sort of the earlier one, and he is used by Neshri in his Jihan Numa. So Neshri kind of clarifies Ashikpashazadeh, makes it more condensed, and Neshri is the one that later Ottoman writers will sort of use to write history themselves. The Oxford Anonymous is kind of an outlier. It's obviously an anonymous one, but there is a tendency in all of these chronicles that there were people that were not satisfied with the kind of centralizing tendencies that especially began with Mehmed the Conqueror, who conquered Constantinople, of course, but is sort of continued with his son Bayezid II. So one interpretation is that you have these kind of chronicles that are written looking back at this earlier period, when it's kind of this free flowing sort of frontier where it's just going out and fighting the Byzantines, and now life is horrible because we have to sit down and write like administer an empire and do all this paperwork or something, right? So that's one interpretation, and I think there's something to that. But where does that leave us in terms of understanding early Ottoman history? Well, there's really not many satisfying answers, unfortunately. Now, there is the Byzantine sources that I haven't really talked about, partly because I don't know that material very well. But the Byzantine sources do tell us some things. You also have Ibn Battuta, the traveler from the 14th century, who fills in some details. But you don't really have a lot of firm answers, in terms of sources from that period, especially during Osman's time, that can give us like the smoking gun. And really in history, that kind of evidence I think is rare, especially dealing with medieval or sort of ancient history. And I think my only conclusion would be, what do we do with these kinds of sources? There's a tendency for some people to be kind of radical revisionists. This isn't only in Ottoman history. You see this in early Islamic history, or you did decades ago more commonly, of, well, all the sources are late, so we cannot know anything, and, that perhaps they're even just fictive narratives. They don't reflect any kind of reality. That has always struck me as a pretty weak argument, just because, first of all, these people were living through this. This was their reality. Um, certainly they had kind of an ideological framework that they operated within, but I don't think that would have made them, completely make everything up, or, and even in when you read these chronicles, the kind of distortions, or what we would consider distortions, can tell us something else that's also interesting. But really, we have to sort of work with these instead of, I think, throwing our hands up and saying, well, we can't know anything, and it's all kind of post hoc reconstruction. That's not really the way to approach these kinds of narratives. So I think I will wrap up here. I know that's not a very impactful ending, but really the answer is we don't really have a ton of answers, but we can use these sources in a way that makes us, that sort of gives us an idea of what happened in the early 14th century. Although it is, interesting that for such an important moment, or what would become an important moment retrospectively, there's really not many sources to speak of that date from the period. But I think we can, nevertheless use these even if they are late. So well, with that, I hope you found this informative. I was just sort of speaking off the cuff, so if I missed something, or missed another source that I could have discussed, I probably did, so I apologize for that. And maybe I will revisit this topic later, but I just wanted to discuss this and share something I find interesting. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.